I'm Hermit DaVlog and I approve of this message.
How y'all doing? Alright, I got a topic for y'all. I was riding this old trail on this old XR 400 with my old body, and I was kind of wondering, like, are old things underrated, overlooked, underappreciated? I mean, let's talk about dirt bikes. Let's just talk about dirt bikes and dual sports. Like, do you think people overlook the old ones for the new ones for the wrong reasons? I'm kind of thinking, yeah, I'm kind of thinking that's true. That people, I mean, I know I did. First time I got a bike, it was a new bike. And, you know, and what I was thinking was, hey man, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to go look at a used bike off of Craigslist and figure out, you know, what's wrong with it and if I should get it or not. And, you know, then when I get it, I don't know how it's supposed to ride. I don't know what the suspension's supposed to feel like. You know, and like, what if something goes wrong with that motor blows up on me? Like, you know, like, you know, if I get a new bike, then maybe like the dealership will warranty it and help me out, right? If I get a used bike, I'm on my own. That kind of seemed intimidating to me. So I got a new bike, and I spent a lot of extra money to get a new bike, and now I'm on my 6th bike, and man, I'd never think about buying a new bike. Well, I don't know, if it was really special, like somebody came out with something that was just really awesome and I really needed to have it, and you just couldn't get them used because they were brand new, then yeah, okay, maybe. I'll say this at least. If you're an advanced rider, if you've been riding for a while, if you've had a couple motorcycles, you know whether or not you should get a new bike, right? I'm not saying there's never a time to get a new bike. I'm saying you'll know, right? But if you don't know whether or not you should get an old bike or a new bike, let me just tell you, get the old bike, for sure. I totally would. Like, if I had a friend who was like, hey man, I'm thinking about getting a motorcycle, I don't know where to start, I'd be like, yeah, get a popular old bike. That's what I would do. You know, and here's the thing that's interesting, is I wouldn't have said that necessarily 15 years ago. Something's changed, and I think because of that, it's made it so where old bikes are way more viable now than they used to be. Even the same bikes, like an old bike 15 years ago, I think is more viable now that is 15 years older than it was. So y'all know what I'm talking about? No, Hermit, you're not making any sense again. Why don't you just say what you want to say so that we can get on with this stupid video? All right. It's the internet and the tube use. This right here. This is what's changed. Right now, some of you younger folks, you millennials, you may not realize this, but the internet was not invented to amplify somebody acting like a toolbox. It was actually originally invented by scientists and academics to share information across the world so that they could solve problems faster. Here's the thing, that still works for dirt bikes. Yeah, that still works for dirt bikes. If you got an old dirt bike and you don't know what to do with it, there's thousands of people out there that you can access that will help you out. That's what's changed. That's why these old bikes are really a much better idea than they used to be, and why new bikes are making less and less sense. And the internet factor aside, I still kind of think new bikes might be a little overrated because people are just getting into it. They kind of make some assumptions based on their experience with automobiles, and not realizing that that's different. You know, like an automobile, you buy a new car and like a dealership will probably help you out for like 5 years. Like 5 years, something goes really wrong, you got a warranty and you can get it fixed, right? So you just don't got to worry about anything for a while, right? Especially if you use the car the way it's supposed to be used, and most people buy cars and use them the way they're supposed to be used. So for the motorcycle, yeah, those warranties are a whole lot shorter, and there's a lot of things you can do with a motorcycle that really shouldn't be the dealership's problem, and they may not help you out if something catastrophic goes wrong. You bring it back to them 3 months later. You know, I've had friends where that was the case. Like they had something catastrophic go wrong in their motors, and the dealership wouldn't help them out. And you know, maybe they weren't doing anything wrong by not helping them out, because like that was what the warranty actually covered. And yeah, so just, you know, I'm not trying to diss dealerships and warranty programs and stuff like that. I'm just saying it's not the same as cars. If you're just getting into it, you should look into it. All right. The other thing is, if you got a car, if you find like a 15-year-old car and it's been sitting for a couple of years. Man, that's gonna be a rat's nest. You know there's gonna be all kinds of stuff dried up on that car that you're gonna have to get into, and it's just gonna be a pain in the butt. You know, because it probably was used a lot, and then it may have sat a lot, and it's just the cars are way more complicated than dirt bikes. There's just so many more things that have to work that could go wrong on a car. On a dirt bike, there's just not that much to them. So, man, that's a little bit gnarly. That used to be smoother right there. Anyways, yeah, on a dirt bike, yeah, if the motor doesn't smoke, you're probably pretty good to go. You can probably handle anything else for less than a few $100. So, you know, and then, like, what's the worst case scenario? You buy an old dirt bike. Like, if I bought this old XR 400 and the motor grenaded on me, then I bought it for $1,000. I'd probably part it out and make money on it, right? You know, I'd probably sell the wheels for, you know, $150 a piece, and you know, sell the forks and the shocks for, you know, $100 a piece. You know, it doesn't take that long before you're getting pretty close to getting your money back. For what it's worth, my experience has been that you know, I've had, I think, 6 bikes now. My experience between my bikes and all my friends' bikes has been that the old bikes have not been much more, if any more, of a problem than the new bikes. The old bikes, usually the carburetor needs to be cleaned out and jetted. A lot of times, you don't know what the bike's jetted for anyway, so you gotta, whether it's new or used, you gotta get in that carburetor and jet it. The suspension, usually on the old bikes, you gotta, you know, get all the fluids out of the suspension and spring them right for you. But usually on new bikes, they're not sprung right for you, so you gotta get into the suspension and spring them right. So really, other than the fact that a new bike's not going to have a carburetor that needs to be rebuilt, and an old bike probably does, I haven't seen a huge difference in the trouble that it takes to own and ride and maintain an old bike versus a new bike. You know, another thing that makes the whole thing kind of foggy is financing. You know, I'm not going to preach to people about what to do with their money or what not to do with their money, but like that's, yeah, let's just acknowledge that manufacturers need to sell new bikes to stay in business, and if they didn't do that, then we would never have old bikes. So it's not all bad, but you know, when you're looking at throwing down $2,000 or $3,000 for a motorcycle that's old, or spending $125 a month for a motorcycle that's new, yeah, I can see where it's not cut and dry for some people. But man, if you can avoid that, you should avoid that. Like, you want to spend $8,000 spread out over years versus $3,000 up front. Like, if you can't afford the $3,000 up front, there's a good chance you really can't afford the $8,000 spread out over 3 to 5 years. So yeah, you know, and then, like, what if you get that bike, that new bike, and, you know, as soon as you take it, you know, you lost $3,000 in its value, so now you got a bike that's worth maybe $6,000 that you owe $9,000 or $8,000, and you want to sell it because you realize it's not the bike for you. You know, you're screwed. You got to make payments for a couple years before you can get out from under that bike. You buy an old bike, and you know, do your homework, and you know that you're buying a bike that's worth $2,000, and you're spending $2,000 on it, and you buy it and you decide you don't like it and you need to get out of it. You sell it for $2,000 and you start over. Big deal. But you know, I know there's a lot of pressure to buy new bikes. I mean, the dealerships, they got to do it. Like, they got to do it. The manufacturers, they got to do it, you know, so they got to put the financing out there to make it tempting. They got to put advertisements all over the TV and all over the magazines. You know, they got to work the social networks. They got to create hype to make you really want that bike, that new bike. It's their job. Don't blame them. That's their job. But we just got to acknowledge, like, they're not doing it because they have our best interest in mind. They're doing it because it's their job, right? So chances are, from a financial perspective, the old bike's a better bet, because it's not really anybody's job, except for the guy who owns the old bike, to sell you the old bike. And that guy doesn't have nearly the influence and leverage that Honda and Yamaha and Kawasaki and Suzuki and everybody else, all the dealerships networks of all those manufacturers. Like, they got so many more resources to push you to getting that new bike than the one guy on Craigslist. I can't blame anybody for thinking that the new bike's just a great idea, even when it's not. But let's get back to the internet factor for a second here, because I think that's really the key. That's really the thing that just gets overlooked on the old bike versus new bike decision. Is there's lots of information out there, tons of information. I mean, first of all, there actually was an internet 20 years ago with forums, and people were posting information about these bikes when they were new. So those posts are still there. You can still get to them. So there's still tons of information about these bikes, just in that alone. And then, you know, those forums are still there. If you ask a question today, like, you know, hey, I'm hearing this funny sound, and you know, the bike's stuttering when it's at this RPM or whatever, yeah, somebody's going to be able to help you out. And then there's also parts. Like, it's easier to get parts than it ever has been before. You know, you can get used parts on eBay, and then you can I mean, still, like, you can get OEM brand new parts for pretty old bikes. So, you know, like this bike, crap, this bike's 19 years old. I can still get most of the parts for it online. Rocky Mountain ATVMC.com. I'll go there, and they have an OEM section. I'll look at the schematics of the bike, and I'll get whatever part I need and pop it on there. You know, sometimes it's not practical because that's an expensive way to get that part. Sometimes it's the only way to get the part. But, you know, it's there. You know, and then let's not get out of this video without mentioning some of the YouTubers that go out of their way to help people get into to dirt bikes and dual sports by sharing their experiences and sharing what they know. You know, like, you know, to me, I think like the most valuable YouTube channels are not necessarily the ones that have the most subscribers or get the most views or have the viral videos. Like the YouTube channels that I appreciate the most by far are the ones where it's just guys sharing their information. Either they really have an expertise and they just want to share it, or they're just discovering things and they want to share the experience of discovering so they can maybe save somebody else some time and money. Like, those are the guys I really appreciate, you know. So Mr. Duhfactor, top of the list there, man. He's got lots of great videos. If you want to know how to rebuild forks, rebuild shocks, do anything in suspension, do anything in a motor, do anything on an old bike, he's got a video about it. It may not be the exact old bike that you're working on, but you should watch the videos that he's got, because you'll pretty much figure it out just from that. FrickinJim, like FrickinJim, man, he rides old bikes, and a lot of his content is about sharing information just to be helpful to other people. eveRide, if you can stand that guy, that's kind of most of his content is just, here's my experience as a noob, here's what I figured out, maybe this will save you some money, right? So yeah, I think because of guys like that and lots of other information that are out there, old bikes, man, like that's the way to go. That's the way to, at least until you figure out what you really want. So if you're getting into dual sports or dirt bikes and you're not really sure what to do, find an old popular bike that looks like it'll work for you. Get an old XR, get an old WR, get a I don't know, KDX, KLX, what else is there out there that's pretty good? DRZ. And you know, don't be afraid to make a few mistakes. Don't be afraid to break some stuff. It probably won't be as expensive as you think. You're probably more capable than you think, and there's probably a lot more people out there who are just happy to help you than you think. So go for it. Go for it. Get you an old bike. Get you an old bike. You'll like it. Even if you got a new bike and you're just looking for a second bike, I still say get an old bike for your second bike, because they're fun, and you know, you can be a little bit more brave on them, both in riding them and working on them, and learn more stuff. Alright, y'all have a good week. Thanks for listening. Appreciate y'all. Over and out.
Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Those actions go a long way to helping me out and to encouraging me to make more videos. Y'all have a good week. Over and out.